And so I wanted to ask you, just getting into the book. Of course, I got my copy, and you did sign it for me.
Oh
I
man.
know, I know you don't remember that, but you did sign it for me. So I mean, so when we open up the book and we get past the introduction, you know, what you come to first is blacks and prenatal care. Blacks and prenatal care. Now, I have a nonprofit organization called Knowledge for Life, and we do health and wellness conferences. And one of the conferences that I always like to try to focus on is the rate of maternal and infant mortality. It's like a canary in the gold mine.
Hmm.
What do you say about infant mortality and maternal mortality? And if you could explain that to those who may not know what we're talking about.
When I was writing the book, I wanted us to discuss from the cradle to the grave. So that's why I started with infant mortality, prenatal care, all of these things. And I end with social security. I end with senior citizens, I believe, senior care. With the women who are having babies, a lot of times we don't know what we need to do to protect our health. So we're dealing with the fact that our nutrition has to be a certain way. We have to be getting exercise. We have to be even the thoughts that we're thinking, the environment that we're putting ourselves in. All of those things impact our child and impact our physical health. So now but even with all of those things perfect, I mean, perfectly, you take care of yourself perfectly, you still enter in a system, a hospital system that's hostile. They are concerned about the rate of births of Black women. And that is a big issue because if you're coming into your enemy's hospital and they're concerned about how many babies you're having, then there's a way that they can eliminate that. And the way you eliminate that is to reduce the infant. You make sure that these women don't come out of the hospital because if you're coming in and you're having one baby, and then they make sure that you're not going to have a second, a third, and a fourth because you're not here. So we don't want to. I don't want to come out and say that it's intentional, but
Mm,
the odds should not be that a woman comes in this time frame with all the medical information that they have, with all of the resources
absolutely.
that these hospitals have. Why is so many Black women dying? And so what is the comparison between Black women statistics and female white women statistics? If it's so disproportionately, we have to look at the why. And sometimes you have to recognize that we're walking into these people's hospital and they have their own agenda. Their agenda is not for you to come in and leave the same way. If that was the case, we wouldn't have such a high rate. And then you have women who've complained and told the nurses that they had an issue. They told them they were feeling pain. They told them there was an issue going on and nobody investigated it because it's like, whatever. We don't even want it. We don't want you here in the first place. So why are you showing up at and you're having a baby? We can't even have babies because their birth rate is going down. Our birth rate is going up. They want to make sure that they can eliminate us. And if they can eliminate us at birth, they're willing to do
Right,
it.
What about all
right.
these cesarean recommendations all the time?
See, the cesarean section, it should be a rarity. It should not be a situation where most women are having cesarean sections because that's a major operation.
Mm,
And so you got to remember there's money to be made with cesarean sections. A woman that comes in and has a vaginal delivery, she's going to be out of the hospital within 24 hours. Her insurance company is going to only pay X amount of dollars. But if you have a cesarean section, you're going to stay longer. There's more money to be billed. You have all these medicines and anesthesiologists, and everybody's making money on that cesarean section. But
mm,
also, the cesarean section increases your rate or risk of complications and premature death.
mm. And
And it
don't doesn't
limits
it
how many
also?
babies you can have too. Right. Yeah.
Well,
And yeah,
that's
that's what I
kind
was.
of like a fallacy
Okay.
because they tell you that. But I did research,
Okay, please tell us.
and when I did my own research, because one of my children was a cesarean section, so they were saying, oh, you can only have X amount, but that's not really the case. You just have to be knowledgeable, and when you enter and say, no, the research says A, B, and C. And so just because you have one cesarean section does not mean that you have to have another, unless you have some kind of issue that's, that physically you cannot push that child out. you should be able to have a vaginal delivery. But if you don't know that, they will cut you again. And then that may limit how many children you have based on they don't want to keep cutting you. But if you, just because you have one cesarean section does not mean that you have to have, you can't have a vaginal delivery after that.
Yes, ma'am.